Good morning, I'm Ranger Dave, and this once again is West Valley Rule. Well, these days, everybody wants a huge kitchen. And I get that, I really do. I really do get that. I mean, but what good is a huge kitchen if you got a kitchen island that's large enough to park a Buick, and you never do anything with it but stack pizza boxes. Now, in our small house, in our small kitchen, my wife and daughter, they do some miracles. So it's not how big your kitchen is, it's what you do in it. So once again, we're going to be going back in the kitchen, and we're going to be doing, well, one of the things we do every year. We're going to make granola. And it's one of those simple things, yet it's the amount of people that buy granola in the store, or cereals in the store, and in that box it has all kinds of words that you cannot pronounce. You do not even know what's in it. I mean, you got to go Google some of the ingredients. That ain't right. So we're going to make some granola, and you're going to know what's in it, and you don't have to Google. It's pretty obvious what's in it. So let's go back in the kitchen. Let's go see. Let's go do some granola. What are we making?
Okay, for the poor husband that doesn't typically go into the kitchen, a lot of stuff going on today. I want to make granola. Granola is one of those things that you want to make sure that you put all the best parts into it to get a really high quality granola. And we're rolling in milk right now from all the goats. So I want granola on hand for cereal when I want it. One of the ingredients for granola, it calls for a cup of ghee, or ghee. I'm not exactly sure how to say it, but it's Ghee, which is a clarified butter with the milk solid. Like when we did the milk separation, you separated that milk into the cream. Then we whipped and whipped and whipped that cream until we got butter. So the very light white part here, this is the white.
That's our home butter?
That's butter that I made here. And then the other is regular store-bought butter. But I don't have that much goat butter, so I want to use the two together and see
so it's kind of
how the ghee making is any different. Yeah. It actually, they're working about the same. So to make ghee, you put your butter into a pot and you just keep cooking it on a medium to low temperature. Watch it, don't let it scorch or burn, because it's disgusting when you do that. So don't do that. And I've done that. But this is gonna keep cooking until, like, the cloudy parts that you see, the white parts, that's the milk solids that are left in that butter when you churn the butter. So essentially what I'm doing is cooking off those milk solids to leave a very concentrated fat in there. So ghee is really like, it concentrates down the vitamins and stuff that are naturally in the butter. Like, I think I don't remember exactly. It's one of the vitamins that, like, helps clotting or helps with blood circulation. That's typically found in butter, and when you just cook it, it concentrates all that stuff. This is a concentrated fat that can be left at room temperature, and it cooks at a higher temperature than the butter itself. So recipes that call for ghee, you could probably use melted butter, but you're missing out on a lot of the nutrients and the concentration of the fat. So you just keep cooking it, and it gets like where it starts smelling like popcorn, because that butter, but you can see the milk is cooking out of there, and that's coming to the top. That is going to cook off or sink to the bottom, and what you're going to have, this will clear up. It will be clear, And that's when you have the ghee product, which you can strain it off and leave it in a little jar and cook with it, you know, like a concentrated high fat oil or high cooking oil, high temperature cooking oil, or you can use it in stuff, which for the granola, it's gonna add the fat content so that you don't have to eat as much to be full. I also put in like nuts and other stuff like that, so it's more balanced. And then you
so
just
if this is
cook it
going
and
well,
cook it.
then it's a gleeful ghee.
Yes, it just sits there and pops.
Glee.
But you can see as it bubbles, those milk fats are moving away, and they're gonna like sink to the bottom or be cooked off. And when you know, you'll start to smell the popcorn smell, and you know the butter's just about done. And this will kind of clear off. This will become clear, and you'll have little like brown portions in the bottom. That's the the milk fat that got cooked in there. But you don't actually pour that off. You see the smell, the change in the smell?
Yeah.
So it's just about there. So,
yeah.
All of that's going to cook off. Another minute or two.
And then, do you have to...
But see, all of that is becoming clearer, and that milk solid's getting cooked off. So I don't know when I started making this stuff, but I've been making it for years. But just this year is the first time we actually started making our own butter from the milk. We had so much milk. So we run butter, we run ice cream, everything out of that milk. But you look at that, there's like hardly no milk solids there. I'm gonna let this get just kind of a golden brown color. You want it to cook a little bit. So another minute or two, but you just keep cooking it. So
and then what do we do with it?
I'm gonna put it in my granola. So I'm gonna add the honey and some of the dried fruit because it's a little on the dry side. So I'm gonna kind of let it soften in here a little bit. But the honey, you don't want to ever heat your honey. So when I take this off of heat, I'll add the honey. It'll thin the honey out, but it won't kill the honey. See,
all right, so
see the change in color?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of coming up there, and now it's getting. That's what we want.
So that kind of that golden brown kind of.
Yeah. So then, and that foam will kind of cook off. And clarify.
Oh, there it goes.
That's it. Popcorny smell. It's a little golden brown here. I think I went just a tiny bit too far. But that is there is the milk is in the bottom and the fat is there. So okay. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. I don't know what comes through.
Okay.
But,
so we gotta let this cool.
Yeah, just a little
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she poured off the ghee, and you can really see in this light the milk solids at the bottom there. And it really does smell like popcorn. And then what are you doing over there? You're putting?
Coconut oil.
Putting coconut oil in with the ghee now. Huh. So these are all the ingredients.
Yeah, well, somewhat.
Somewhat. All right. So what did you just do? You put the honey in there?
So yeah, the honey that we get is a local honey guy here in Tonopah. It might be Arizona Bees or something like that. I can't really remember the name. but they never heat their honey. They just simply spin it out of the things that are in the honey hive and package it for you. So it's never heated. It's totally raw, never pasteurized. That's like a dead food if you're going to heat your honey. And for this, I wonder, because I don't really heat this beyond, like even that, I just warm that back up because I use that hot ghee to melt the coconut oil because it's been so stinking cold here the last few nights. My coconut oil is completely solid. So I need a cup of coconut oil. So if you measure out your liquid, which was the warm ghee, hot to warm ghee, and then add in your solid coconut oil until that liquid level raises another cup, then you got your liquids that you need. A cup of ghee and a cup of the coconut oil. The honey, because it's so thick, I don't know if you can see that. It's like our honey is
very good.
Very good. It crystallizes because I get this in 5-gallon buckets, so it lasts at least 6 months for us anyway. And oh man, that smells amazing. So that warm ghee that smells like popcorn.
You mix popcorn with your honey.
Now has the honey on top of it, and it smells so good. But anyway, I'm melting that honey in with the ghee, and I'll let that sit for a second because that will further melt in there. And then when I add in the yogurt and all the liquid parts to the granola, it'll come together with that. And then depending on how much the oatmeal soaks up, or may not need that much water. So it just depends. But anyway, that's all of that. Oh man, it just smells good.
Okay, so what spices are we putting in?
Okay, so now this is the nitty-gritty part of the granola. All right, I got all the liquid parts. I'm adding the oatmeal, which is the basis of my granola.
How much of the oatmeal did we add?
So I'm not giving you the whole instrument. You can look up a granola recipe. I double this. The base recipe is for about 9 cups. And then...
So we make a lot.
Yeah, so I double that. I like a lot of cinnamon.
So this is like a lot of
Yeah.
recipes. Okay.
I like a lot of cinnamon, and I don't really measure it. I know
you do like a lot of cinnamon.
I do like a lot of cinnamon. We like a lot of cinnamon. I also put some chopped up almonds and pecans in here. And then there's pumpkin seeds. So, and again, I don't really measure. I just kind of, I like a few handfuls. And cocoa, anytime you're going to use cinnamon, add cocoa with it. One pairs against the other. So if cinnamon is the flavor that you want to highlight, then you add just a little bit of cocoa powder. But that little bit of cocoa powder will really bring out the cinnamon flavor of the cinnamon. I also add a little bit of salt. The salt, I gotta cut up the almonds actually, they're not in here. A little bit of salt just because the salt brings out the flavor in anything you add it to. So that was salted butter. I use a little bit of salt. And then here, Jamaican allspice is...
More of those precise measurements.
Yeah. The allspice just has... it's just like an earthy flavor that you can use it in anything. Soups,
Is that why they call it allspice?
Yeah, it is an allspice. But when I was a kid, I used to think that it was like all the spices. But allspice is a particular name of that particular berry that they pull off of that tree, and then they dehydrate, dry it out, and that's your spice. So because we do the sausage and we do all that good stuff, we just use allspice in a lot of things, and it's a flavor that I just really started liking. So I put it in almost anything. But for sure, anything that I'm going to make with cinnamon, I pair the cocoa with. If I'm going to make cocoa like we make hot chocolate, I add in some cinnamon and I add in some allspice. And the three flavors together, the allspice, the cocoa, and the cinnamon, they pair really well with almost anything that you put them in. I put it in everything. So, but anyway, that's this. This is all the dry stuff. I got to chop up the almonds, actually, I realized. So I'm going to chop those, and then we're going to put all this together, and then it's going to sit for 24 hours probably. I've got to do some stuff in the morning tomorrow, but hopefully I'll be back before Sabbath and I can get these started at least. They will cook overnight in the oven, and then I pull it out and just break it up into granola. So it dehydrates at a very low temperature, like 150, 200 degrees. And you just let it go overnight to pull out the moisture. And this stuff, I honestly don't know how long it will keep because ours never lasts that long. But it should last for a few months. But again, if you make it and your family likes it, it's not going to be around long. So, okay. So essentially you just divide that granola up. This 13, I don't know, cookie sheet size pan. I honestly don't know the size. But cookie sheet pan, line them with parchment paper, divide it up into the 4 trays. That recipe in my big, huge pan will make 4 trays. So you just divide it all up, and then you flatten them out, and then you stick them in the oven. My oven, you can go take a picture of that. I don't know. It has like what they call a Sabbath setting. So it goes down to like 170 degrees. So it won't, they have that so that the Jews don't have to kindle a fire. But it goes down as low as 170 degrees. 200 or less is fine. Most stoves, I think, should go to that. But you just essentially leave it in there for hours at a time to dry out. So you're dehydrating what we just dumped all that yogurt and water and everything into. You just let it dehydrate. And then you crumble it up at different points. So I'm going to leave this for probably about 3 hours initially. Look at it, see if I want to cut it into bars or anything like that. Probably I'm just going to crumble it up for cereal. But you cook it those first few hours. Look at it. You can either then like cut it into bars and flip it over and then keep cooking it, or you can just like, as you kind of stir it up, it's going to crumble and you're going to get larger chunks and smaller chunks. But you want it in the oven several hours before you start messing with it, and then you can decide which way, if you want to cut it up or whatever. But essentially I'm just going to flatten it out. So I have used like gloves on this as well. Like just put gloves on your hand and smush it in. But rolling pins and an extra sheet of parchment paper works great too. Because essentially my rolling pin is not going to go down into that groove, from the pan itself. So that's going to get me like a flattened appearance. And then I can decide, you want it right up to the whole edge. So if you tried to cook it this way, it would take you a lot longer to get that inside to cook. You want it as flat as possible in the pan. And just like smoosh it out. When it starts getting to the edge, kind of just back it up and get it down in there. done this in a while. This side is better than the other.
So we do this pretty much mostly in the winter and spring, where we have a lot of extra milk from the goats. Is that pretty good?
Corners. No, I want it all the way into the corners, so I have to. Okay. I have to go get my gloves so I can see it. It's almost there, but it just is not. I'm like right into the corner. This also sat for a while. So I couldn't get to it the next morning.
So we had it one extra night in the fridge.
Yeah.
But we had to add, if you have to do that, you make sure you add some water so it's not completely dry. So if you cannot do it over, pretty much right away or overnight, make sure you add a decent amount of water to it.
There we go.
It's a lot of wrist work. Your wrist and hands are going to be tired after doing all 4 trays.
Yep. Then I'll work on taxes, and then I'll watch the grandbaby. I'll do all the other stuff. So, I'm going to kind of let that one go for there.
All right.
You can see it's all the way to the edges. I just need to get a little bit more up that way, but I'm kind of like, I'm going to crunch it up anyway, so this is how we're going to start. And then you just rotate it and mix it as it dehydrates.
So you're going to wind up doing all the other ones, and then it sits in the oven at
several
hours at that one below 200, right around the 170.
But then this is possibly going to take all day to dehydrate. So you start at those 3 hours, and then you start mixing it around, deciding if you're going to cut it into bars or if you're going to use it for just, crunched up granola cereal. But then once you rotate it, then you rotate it every couple of hours until it starts to get nice and dry. And then it may be 30 minutes to an hour at the end. But you're just watching it all the way through the day just to make sure it gets nice and toasted and dried out so it can be shelf stable for a few months. I put these into the half-gallon containers. Quart jars you could use too. But we have one of those dehydrator things that will suck the air out. In the smaller ones, if it's going to sit around for a while, I'll put it into a quart jar where I can suck that air out. If it's likely going to be consumed within a few weeks of me making it, just stick it in a half-gallon jar or a Ziploc bag on the shelf, and it'll be good. You don't got a refrigerator or anything like that.
All right, so we'll check back in a few hours.
Yeah.
So that stove is set for 170, and you can see we just leave it just propped open just a little bit. Show you how it's set. And it just is drying for hours. Okay, so we're done?
No.
No?
So, been cooking several hours. What do you do?
So you flip it upside down.
Yeah, but you got to make sure that you're rotating this and moving it all around.
Because it looks still kind of moist there.
Yeah, so this has been cooking on the other side. So now I just flipped over the whole big piece. And then I want some for cereal chunks. Then I want larger chunks to eat. So, you know, like if you want to grab a chunk. So
some of it is almost done.
No.
No?
It'll be several more hours.
Several more hours?
If you want this to be shelf stable, there cannot be any moisture in the granola. So you got to cook all that out. So these pieces...
So if it still feels moist,
yeah,
it's not done.
Caught on something. All right, so if you want bigger chunks, you just slice it and cut it that way.
And then you would just dry it, continue to dry it that way. Or you can dry it into
pieces, you break it up.
You can dry it into crumble, or you can dry it into bigger pieces.
So, but all of this needs to cook for several more hours.
But it's going to cook, and it's going to cook in a broken up state.
I mean, you can make it all nice and pretty if you want, but I don't necessarily need that. So what doesn't just like break up nicely into chunks, then I just break up for cereal. But so you get some chunky pieces and some cereal pieces. And remember, I did let this sit for a little bit, so it is already drier than, you know, what I would normally bake this at, but so it's a little more crumbly, but it's okay. I kind of want some crumbly pieces. So cereal pieces and bar eating pieces. So, but you just kind of spread them around, flip them over, spread them around, then just keep cooking.
Just remember, it's all got to be dry if it's going to be shelf stable.
So, and you can see, like when you put the pans in there, like facing the back of the oven, that is going to dry a little bit more than that's facing the front of the oven, or it's vice versa. But the back to the front will cook differently. So that's why some of it is obviously more moist than the other. So you just keep rotating it around in your oven.
So if you got a pan that's still got some moisture in it, or if you got a pan that's pretty dry, you would just take that in consideration.
Well, you just have to keep rotating things in your oven so that that's why it's going for more hours, because all of this is got to be moved around within the moisture of the oven, because it is obviously not dry yet. So you just put it all in there.
Sure.
Put it back in there to cook. And then
see, that part there looks like this got some
like
moisture.
this part was drier, and I broke it up earlier. So you just, like, when you switch it around, you just move it around on the tray to make sure that all of it is going to be heated equally throughout your oven. And that's why it takes hours to do this, because everybody's oven is different.
You're still going to keep this at the 170.
Yeah, you just keep it
same low heat
temperature. You're dehydrating it. So after you made it, you dehydrate it. But it's good.
So you got one more pan to do. The same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then when this is all done, it goes in little bags.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see that. So you do a pan on top.
Extra tray.
Pan is hot, so you use the hot pads.
Now I've exposed the whole under bottom part of it.
There you go.
Put that back on that pan.
Now see that? See how the difference in the moisture there?
This is more moist than this side. I honestly can't remember which way was facing what. But this is pretty much what I need face up so it can keep cooking. I don't necessarily need that many more bars, because most everybody here wants the smaller chunks. So
I prefer the cereal myself.
I'm just gonna, yeah, so
All right.
just break it up, put it on the tray. But it's not that hot, so you can easily handle it. Just wash your hands and
Remember, it's only been 170, so the pan will be hot.
not that hot.
It's not that hot.
So, but
All right, we'll see this when it's all done.
that's it.
Well, it's done. Yeah, you have some. It's in the crumple state. Yeah. But that's your texture that you're looking for. Yeah. We always keep some kind of in a bar, and then most of it we do crumple for cereal. Pour your milk, have a nice breakfast, and you made it yourself. No extra preservatives, no words you can't pronounce. And then we just put essentially storage. We just store it on the shelf. We put it in Ziplocs, and we never worry too much about. It stays fresh. It stays fresh. It never lasts long enough to even worry about being on a shelf a huge long time. And we do several batches of this a year, so it just kind of rotates through. But it can stay, in a Ziploc, shelf stable, for quite a few months at room temperature. Well, do you know how to make granola now? Maybe now it's time you try, and maybe you can now, do your own and stop using those boxes where it's getting, especially with inflation, it's getting what you're paying for what's in it's getting really ridiculous. So, you know what? It really is not that difficult to make granola, and maybe it's time you start and again give up that stuff where you cannot pronounce what's in that box. We'll see you next time on West Valley Rural.